Hello friends! Today I thought we would do a really fun video. Instead of doing like 10 books I recommend to read in November or 10 books to finish before the end of the year or any of those other book videos I've done in the past or that you've seen in the past, I thought it'd be really fun to kind of mix my two favorite things, books and eating. Don't worry, we're not going to eat books. But I thought it'd be really fun to kind of do a book and snack mashup. So I'm going to talk about a book and talk about kind of like the vibes, the feelings, and then do a snack that I think works perfectly with that book. So one that you can enjoy while reading that book maybe, or maybe a tea or a coffee or something like that. I thought that'd be a really fun and different type of video to make, and it kind of mixes the two things I really enjoy doing. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I don't have all the snacks here in my home. One, because I didn't go grocery shopping for them. Two, I can't get all of them. And three, I probably shouldn't eat all of them. But I did make a couple of them so that way I could show you a few of the snacks. But for the most part, it's going to be just little photos here. I hope you understand. Let's go ahead and get started. But first, if you are new here, my name is Melissa and I do videos on baking, books, and other cozy content, so you found yourself at Melissa's Cozy Corner. And if you're coming back, hello again. It's so lovely to have you here and part of this fun little project. And if you want to, you can definitely subscribe to kind of join all of the other fun little things we're doing, especially during the holidays. We're going to be having a lot of holiday fun and a lot of holiday type videos and fun things. So make sure you like, subscribe. It definitely shows me the support and love and shows me that I'm making the right content for you. But if you have any thoughts or ideas, you can definitely comment them below, and I would love to also hear your book and snack mashup kind of ideas as well. I think this would be so fun and so interesting and very entertaining. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Let's get started. We're gonna start with a few books. Some of these I have not read yet, so that's kind of exciting because then I can get the snacks to read them. Or not read the snacks. Then I can get the snacks while I'm reading the book. So the first one I'm going to be talking about, The Blanket Cats by Kiyoshi Shigematsu. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I have not read this, but you know me, I love Japanese literature. I really enjoy the coziness, the warmthness. I've read The Traveling Cat Chronicles, What You're Looking For Is in the Library, The Guest Cat, many others. I can't think of all of them off the top of my head. But this one is kind of like What You're Looking For Is in the Library, where we have separate little short stories of different people, and they're all kind of encompassing the same world. So we have this shop who has cats that people can go and buy cats as like pets, or you can kind of get a lone cat. And the back of, like, there's a little question at the top of the back of the book, and it says, is 3 days with a cat enough to change your life? And so people can go there and kind of rent a cat for 3 days and 2 nights, but the one thing is they must sleep in the blanket every night, and they must have their blanket. They must have their blanket, no other blanket. They must be in their carrier at night. There are rules behind these cats that you're kind of getting loaned. And the cats are supposed to be there to kind of help you through these major life changes or difficulties or things. And I think it just sounds so adorable and so cute, and definitely a book that I would enjoy reading this winter. But the most important part, what kind of snack would you eat with these? And I did a little research and I found these dorayaki Japanese pancakes, and they look very warm, very fluffy, very delicious. And what they are they're 2 pancakes and there's red bean paste in the middle of them. And it looks so delicious, and I love Japanese food. I think it's so fun, so tasty, and red bean paste, absolutely delightful. I did red bean bao not too long ago and it was so good. I ate so many of them. So I was thinking having that dorayaki Japanese pancake with this book, I think that'd be such a perfect blend. You have this cozy, warm, delicious treat with these cozy, warm, delicious, delightful stories, and it has this wonderful comforting feeling. And so I think those two things would be really perfect with each other. But I think having like a delicious tea in addition to the pancakes, maybe like a nice Japanese tea to kind of add to that warmthness, to that coziness, and then grabbing yourself a blanket. So I think these two things would go absolutely perfect with each other, and I'm really looking forward to reading this book, and I'm going to have to find some of these dorayaki Japanese pancakes here too. The next book I'm going to be talking about is the Paris Trilogy by Columbie Schneck. I don't believe I pronounced that right, but this is a book I actually picked up in Paris. I was at the Shakespeare and Company bookshop and I asked one of the workers there for a recommendation, and they actually recommended this one for me. I had mentioned that I really love heartfelt stories, something that has a little bit of drama, a little bit of hardship, but not like romance or anything like that. I wanted something that was going to be really motivational, and she recommended this one. And this is a wonderful coming of age story. We get to follow this person going through 3 major life changes or situations, and it's supposed to be very impactful, very eye-opening and very gripping. It's definitely a story that I was surprised I picked up, but it is by a Parisian author, and it's definitely something I'm looking forward to reading. I do also think this would be perfect in winter, so I'm really looking forward to reading this winter. And of course, because this is by a Parisian author, it takes place in Paris, and we have a lot of Paris type things happening in this book. Of course, I'm going to recommend like a classic Paris treat like a croissant or croissant, I always pronounce it incorrect, or a macaron, or any of those delicious Parisian tasty treats. But I think a croissant is definitely one I'm going to put in this one. Maybe a nice delicious espresso if you drink espresso, and a beautiful buttery croissant. I think those things in this book would go absolutely perfect together. I think those nice warmth feelings, but also the complexity of a croissant with the complexity of this story, I think it just sounds like it's a match made in heaven. The next book I'm going to be talking about is Wayward. I also have not read this one. I plan to read it this last fall. It was only a couple weeks ago. But I plan to read Wayward by Emilia Hart this year. I haven't picked it up yet, but maybe I will read it as my next book. Who knows? But this is also one of those really hefty books that have a really heavy story. I've heard good things and bad things about this book, but I haven't gone really in depth in other people's thoughts yet, because I want to be able to read this with an open eye and open heart. I do understand that the story is about witches and about women empowerment, about feminism, and I think it's very much also about earth and power in general. And I was thinking, based on the fact that this book takes place back in the day, so 1942 is the date that's on here, but there's also another date saying 1619. Again, I haven't read the back, but I believe both those dates are very important. I was thinking maybe kind of more of a rustic treat would be really nice, and I actually baked something, so I'm kind of excited for this one. And I baked this beautiful apple kind of cake. It looks very rustic. It's not the most beautiful thing, but that's because it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be rustic, it's supposed to be natural, it's supposed to be really flavorful and very simple. So we have this beautiful kind of apple muffin cake type thing. I added a little bit of maple syrup for flavor, and I think these two go perfectly together. But I think what would also go really nicely with kind of a book that's heavy with some maybe more difficult topics would be a really lovely cup of like earthy tea, maybe like a sage tea that you can pick sage leaves from your garden and then make yourself a beautiful sage tea. So apple cake, apple muffin cake thing with a sage tea and Wayward, I think those are a match made in heaven. I don't know a lot about this book, but I do know I want to read it. I know it's about witches, I know it's about empowerment and nature and a lot, and I think this sounds right up my alley, and maybe a book I pick up tomorrow. Now this is a book I have read, and I know a lot of you have read, but I thought it would be a really fun book to talk about just because I like the idea of maybe mixing in a little bit of food with this book, and that's Emma by Jane Austen. Emma by Jane Austen is about a young woman who, I would say, gets herself involved in other people's lives maybe a little bit too much. But we do follow her story of kind of questioning love, not sure if love really exists, kind of seeing how love changes and alters life and lives around her, and then her trying to figure out what love is in her life. It is really an interesting story and an interesting aspect in a story, because normally when we read stories about love, it's a lot about how the woman is very, I need to find love now. And instead, Emma is kind of encouraging others to fall in love, but maybe not herself. I think it can be very sweet. It is not for everybody. I think the middle dragged on just a little bit for me, but I still very much enjoyed it. And for this one, I think a Victorian sponge cake, I think that would be absolutely perfect for this. It's very classic, very proper, very sweet, and then a lovely cup of tea. So you have to have a little proper teacup though. So you have a little proper teacup, a lovely, elegant sponge cake and Emma, and you have like this like beautiful, delightful, cute thing. And then another like classic, but maybe a little bit different, is Emily of New Moon by L.M. Montgomery. L.M. Montgomery also wrote Anne of Green Gables, so I think this recommendation would work for that too. But this is just a very sweet, wholesome little novel. We have this young girl who moves to a very quiet, peaceful area, and she's just kind of coming to her life and figuring out who she is. I think it's a very sweet novel. It's very wholesome, very cozy and comforting. And so I think it's really perfect for anybody who, one, has read Anne of Green Gables, but is also maybe looking for a different type of Emma. It's not necessarily about love like the way Emma is, but it is about kind of love in another way. So I think this is a very sweet, sweet book. And what I think would go absolutely perfect with it is a very sweet and delightful little treat that are easy to make because I've made them. And those are cute little blueberry muffins. I think blueberry muffins and Emily of New Moon go absolutely perfect together because you have this comforting, warm, sweet thing that's small and just absolutely delightful. I think those two things would go perfect together. And of course, there's a cat on the cover. If there's a cat on the cover, I'm reading it. But these blueberry muffins are easy to make, very delightful, very sweet, and very fluffy and very wholesome. Absolutely perfect. And of course, having a sweet little cup of tea, maybe a blueberry tea, would be perfect. And a little match that would go perfectly with Emily of New Moon. The next one is kind of a funny one. I've recommended it a couple times on my channel, but it's just because I think the author is truly wonderful, just in the way she writes and the way she tells her stories, and she characterizes her characters. And that I Was Told There'd Be Cake by Sloane Crosley. This is a book of essays and short stories, really, really fun. Some of them are heartwarming, some of them are heartbreaking, some of them are just intense. But it is a collection of stories that I really, truly did love. And I think this is probably one of two of my short story books that I have that I've enjoyed almost every single one of the stories. As you can imagine by the title, I Was Told There'd Be Cake, I would recommend cake with this, especially there's some like cheeky little stories in here that I think you need kind of a cheeky little cake. So maybe like a really rich, decadent chocolate cake that's a little like, when you eat it, you're like hee hee hee, because you're almost breaking all the rules by eating this like decadent, delicious chocolate cake. But that's just my opinion. Maybe you can get some cute little cupcakes with some little fun decorations on top, and I think that would be also really perfect with, I thought that I Was Told There'd Be Cake. Maybe you get cupcakes, so to make it a little bit more cheeky, because this is saying you got cake, but then you get a cupcake. And I don't know about you, but I've definitely gotten a cupcake when I thought there'd be cake, and no, cupcakes and cakes are not the same. Different flavors, different textures, different things, and then the frosting to cake ratio is also completely different. So I'm definitely more of a cake person than a cupcake person, but that's just me. So I think a delicious, wonderful cake, decadent chocolate cake, and this would be absolutely a match made in heaven, and really fun, and just a cheery, cheeky little adventure through some wonderful stories. The next book I'm going to be talking about is Neil Gaiman's The Graveyard Book. And this is, I finished this year, and I thought it was so sweet, so heartwarming and caring, and just a wonderful little story about a young boy who gets raised by ghouls, goblins, and ghosts in a graveyard. That's honestly what this story is about. It's very coming of age and learning about who you are and who you want to be. I think it's very sweet for young adults, or maybe the transition between childhood to teenagers. If you're wanting to read your child a book, I think this is absolutely perfect. But as an adult, I really love this as well. I think it's definitely sweet, wonderfully. It's like a warm hug that has some sour bits in it. I don't think we're talking about hugs, we're talking about sweet things. So I think this is like if you had chocolate covered strawberries. Not like chocolate covered strawberries like Valentine's Day, but maybe like chocolate covered strawberries like the dried strawberries, or maybe like chocolate covered almonds where you have that crunch inside that you weren't expecting because you thought they were just like chocolate malt balls or something, but you have this very different thing than what you were expecting on the inside. And that's what I was thinking about, like chocolate covered dried strawberries, because that dried strawberry has a very big punch, a very intense flavor, but you also have this warm comforting of the chocolate. And then maybe something like musky to drink, not alcoholic, but like maybe like a tea that's a little bit more like musky in flavor. I have this tea that has cat mint in it. I know that's for cat, but it smells like it has cat mint in it, and it smells very musky to me. And so maybe that would be perfect with it. So graveyard book and chocolate covered dried strawberries or almonds, and those things would go really funky, but delightful together. The next one I'm going to be talking about is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. This is loved by a lot and disliked by a lot as well. But I found it to be a delightful little novel. I think it's really fun. I'm looking forward to reading the other, I think there's four extra novels to this little series of books. But this is just a fun, whimsical little story of a man who gets sucked out of Earth and saved because the Earth is being imploded and destroyed to make way for a highway, a space highway. So it's just a fun story if you haven't read it. I do recommend it. It's definitely a sci-fi book, so if you haven't read sci-fi, I think this is a great introduction. If you love sci-fi, you definitely have to pick this one up. And then we have, of course, the little baked treat that I think would go perfect with this, and that's just your classic sugar cookie. And I know that sounds really weird, but I think if the world imploded, a classic sugar cookie with like that frosting, if you're from the US, you know what sugar cookies I'm talking about. It's the ones that you get like in Safeway at the front in the bakery. And you walk in and they always have like a big round cookie and a big round dollop of frosting on top. I don't know why, I love those cookies, and I know they're so terrible for you, but when I think of those cookies, I think also of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and this is like a classic little novel that's a classic cookie, and if the world was just imploded and destroyed for a highway, I would think to myself, I wish I could have another one of those Safeway sugar cookies. So I recommend the Safeway sugar cookie. They're terrible for you, but they're absolutely delicious, and they would go perfect with this book. The next book I'm going to be talking about is The Pachinko Parlor by Elisa Shaw Dussapin. I do apologize if I pronounced that wrong. I'm going to try to look up the pronunciations more often. But this is a very interesting kind of coming to terms, so not coming of age, but coming to terms story. We have a young woman who's trying to encourage her parents to go back to their home country, which is Korea, but she's noticing her grandparents aren't interested in going back, or at least they're very hesitant. They've made their life in Tokyo, they've made their life here, and they've been there for so long that you can feel the hesitation in a lot of how they're feeling and what they're feeling, and you have their granddaughter who's just really trying to encourage them to go back to their home country just to see how it is. It is a very, like I said, coming to terms story. It is very interesting, it's slow, but it's very gripping, and I think something really like cold would be perfect, like maybe mochi, where you have kind of like the bitterness of maybe matcha mochi. I think matcha mochi would be absolutely perfect because matcha has that kind of like bitterness and earthiness. And then you have mochi, which is nice and sweet, and you have that gum paste around it with a nice mochi ice cream in the middle. And it's very earthy, but very, very strong. And I think that would be a really good like match with this story, because you have this very like hefty story, but it's also very delightful and smooth, and you want to savor those flavors. So matcha mochi ice cream and the Pachinko Parlor. The last book we have, which I think, it's another novel I haven't read yet, but I've been really looking forward to reading it. And that's On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. This is supposed to be a very heartfelt, heavy story about pain and loss, but also finding yourself. And it's supposed to be absolutely beautifully written, absolutely gorgeous, and just a heartfelt story. And it also ties to the connection of Vietnam and the person's, Ocean Vuong's, story from Vietnam. So I was thinking, I was trying to think of some things from Vietnam that I think would go really well with this story, and for some reason, Vietnamese coffee kept popping in my head, and I think it still works because it's just very strong and pungent, and the story is also supposed to be very, very pungent in the sense of just really hefty and really there. And I think also I looked up some Vietnamese treats to kind of go with the coffee, and one of them was a pandan flavored sponge cake. So this sponge cake right here, I've never tried it before, but I would love to try it. And that cake with the coffee and this book, I think you're gonna be filled with flavors of intensity and beautifulness. And then with this novel, I think you'd be feeling the same exact way. So those were 10 books with 10 snack mashups. I know this video was slightly different from what I would normally do, but I love baked goods, I love treats, I love coffee, I love tea. I've even had a tea sitting here this whole time and I forgot about it. But I have my cold tea because I'm still dealing with my cold. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you liked this idea. If you want, I could definitely make this a series of just like talking about different books and then mashing them up with snacks or baked goods or foods, and then be a fun little series we can do together. I would love to hear some of your mashups. Like if you have different opinions, maybe you think that different goods would go better with the different books I've talked about. I would love to hear your opinion. Make sure you write it in the comments below. But if you like this video, I would love if you press the like button. I would love if you subscribed and joined our little cozy crew that we're building here. I want to make sure we have positive and happy feelings, and I just want to make a space for you guys that you feel welcome and loved and can relax and enjoy a little bit of peace and happiness. So I have to run, but I do appreciate you guys being here. I do appreciate you guys taking your time to spend with me, and I hope you have a fantastic day, a wonderful weekend, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Ciao!